Okay, my name is Billy Watson, and I'm here today with Terry Alderton, who is a comedian who is currently on tour. How are you doing today, Terry?
I'm very good today. It's good. I'm good to ask that question. How are you today? I'm good today. Yeah.
That's cool. Has it been different in the past? Have you had a rough few days or something?
No, I just have days. I just have what day I'm on. And is that a good day today or a bad day today? No, I think most days are bad, to be honest with you. But you know what it's like. You get up and go, oh God, what is it today?
Yeah.
Oh, it's raining.
Well, I'm living in Turkey, so the weather's a bit better here. It's one of the reasons I moved here because the depressing UK weather. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just. I just hope. I mean, actually, I know. Look at us. We're talking about UK, and we're already on the weather. It's ridiculous, isn't it? But I was getting more metaphorically speaking about my mind. But
Ah.
no, it's raining again. Actually, it's raining, just raining, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that doesn't help the state of mind. But you're on a comedy tour.
No, it's like water torture. Sorry, mate. Go on. Sorry, Bill.
Yeah, no worries. You're on a tour. You're basically 7 days into your tour. Yeah.
I am. Yeah, I've done. Yeah, I think there's 6 or 7 gigs. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I'm enjoying myself actually. It's first couple I got. I don't get it wound up and get it going, but it's been fine. But the last sort of 3 or 4 have been great, and I'm doing a double act at the beginning with a friend of mine, Johnny. So I go out and do a double act with him first, and then I go out and do my bit in the second half. It's all crazy, completely crazy.
Yeah, well, no, I've heard of you before. A friend of mine, Obi, John O'Brien, I don't know if you heard of him, he's a Scottish comedian. He went to see you a couple of years ago and he recommended you. And I just never got around to watching you. And then I've seen you today and, you're quite manic and crazy on stage. I've never really seen that type of style before.
Yeah. Well, I think I mean, it's a long story, but I knew I had to reinvent myself because it was kind of more of a very I was a mainstream version of myself.
Uh-huh.
And various things happened in my life, a sub story and all that. But I knew I had to reinvent myself because I came away from comedy for quite a few years, and then I sort of came back trying to do the same thing. And of course, you suddenly realise that it's dated. It's not even it's not even part of the rhythm anymore, if you like. And I thought to myself, this needs to change, or I need to pack it in. So just by fluke, I started doing those voices, and that kind of opened everything up. But there were various things along the way, even up I came back about 2006, and even by 2010, I thought I was cooking with this whole new idea, and then there was various other things which then swayed it again, So it comes to a point where, because I'm a big fan of the likes of Andy Kaufman and Steve Martin and that kind of anti-comedy, that kind of looking at and taking things a different way and not taking it so the mainstream way, which I was doing, which was ironic, And now I've become the complete mirror of that. Not mirror, sorry, the complete flip over of that,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's a strange place to be in, but it's a great place to be, because I thought I was supposed to be Mr. Michael Barrymore, Saturday Night Telly, but I didn't want to do that. I want to do what Milligan had done and Bentine and all these kind of people.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I was going to ask you what your style was like before, because basically you'd done comedy and then was it 2001 or something? You quit for a few years and then you've come back. And then...
Yeah, I did London's Burning, and it was all... I had this kind of rise through the 90s, and then I did at the end of the 90s, I did loads of sort of mainstream TV, proper Saturday night, prime time stuff. And then it kind of chewed me up and chucked me out. Whether I wasn't good enough or the shows that I did, what I was being told were the things that were the problem, but it wasn't. It's really me. And when I look back at it, I was thinking, oh God, I didn't even want to be there. And then the final straw came when I was standing on the set of London's Burning, looking around myself, thinking, oh, now I'm on London's Burning, and I did a series of that. There's no disrespect to that show, but it's known this is what I wanted to be or what I wanted to do. And I think what had happened was where I set out to be a comedian, I'd end up being lost and try to become some sort of like celebrity actor, kind of stroke comedian, kind of entertainer.
Uh-huh.
And it was good that the whole thing fell apart and the wheels fell off it all, like I said, the whole sob story and what have you.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't until the agent I've got now, excuse me, said to me, you need to concentrate on doing what you do and what people can't do, and that's be a comic. And that was the whole kind of renaissance and the change, and where I'm at now. That was what it was all about. And and it's taking what I do as a stream of consciousness anyway, and it's a stream of, it kind of what I'm doing on stage is trying to emulate one's mind, whether it be physically what I'm doing or mentally or you know, what I'm saying. But the randomness of it and the cutting back and the forward is, you know, it's very much how my mind works. And I don't know that everybody's mind works like that, but I'm sure a lot of people's do. So I think when people start to realise, they go, no, actually, I see what you're doing. It's an observation of mind, this, you know, and you go with it, then that's fine. But if you don't get it, you don't get it. I think that's what it has to be.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the audience when they're watching you, they go with that kind of insanity and they kind of recognise that kind of jumpiness around in themselves, and then that was what brings the laughter. But it does look as though after watching you do quite a few different ones, there must be some structure in there within all that kind of manicness.
When you do TV appearances, of course, there's a lot more structure to be played. But it was funny. There's a comic called Bootsy Graffer. I'm a big fan of, and I worked with Bootsy about a month ago. We did. What are we doing? We're doing something in Cheltenham. We did the main hall in Cheltenham. It was lovely, actually. And I hadn't worked with Bootsy for a while, and I came off, and he was laughing because he's a real sarcastic, you know, B. And he's laughing, and I said, "What?" He went, "It's brilliant, it's brilliant." And I went, "Oh, thanks, mate." He went, "No. It's brilliant, the fact that all this madness is going on, and then you start. And he said, "There's like a musical cue comes in," and he said, and I thought to myself, "He's worked this out. He's worked this out."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's that bit at the end of one of your shows, the bit came in. I was like, Jesus, where did that come from? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he's worked this out. So. You know, there is a kind of structure. There is a kind of a structure and a kind of a means to an end, if you like, that I have to get to. Mm-hmm. And within there are things that I have, and then but essentially what I'm doing is I'm just throwing it all up in the air at the beginning. Mm-hmm. You know, and then letting it fall how it falls. Now, over the last few years, that's been quite tough when you're doing an hour, because, you know, you've got to keep it going and what have you. But I decided that on this tour, what I wanted to do was I wanted to do an hour plus, like I would do like a 20-minute or a 30-minute set, which is just go at it, you know, and not give myself too many restrictions of getting to the end, so it all got that lovely ending at the end where you go, oh, that's amazing, you tied it all up. Because I felt that was becoming detrimental to what I wanted to do through the show, even though at the end it would be very nice and you go, oh, that's nice, you know, that's nice. So I'd have to weave certain things in, and I didn't want to keep weaving them in. And also, you know, I don't like format. I don't like to be stuck in a play. For me, when I see a lot of comics before you go on, you know, used to, they get their little notes out and they'd read through their gags and what have you. And that, I used to stand there thinking, I don't know why you do that. Just go be funny. I mean, I know everyone works differently, and it's probably good thinking, oh well, you know, get your head out your backside, but. For me, it's about just going out there and being funny. You know, go out there and be the jester.
Yeah, that's definitely what it appears you're doing. You know, it's just like funniness for the sake of it. You don't have any real plan. But I heard you getting interviewed on a different thing where you talked about during the Edinburgh show. You weren't having that place to get to for the end, for the payoff. But you're saying now that you've ditched that and you're just kind of letting it rip.
Yeah, I'm feeling now. Yeah, and that's the point. You see, and even in that, what you're saying there, the other thing that I want to do, whether I will be able to do this, I don't know. But it seems to be that when you get well known as something, that it becomes the product. It happens with singers. It even happens with footballers' haircuts from the 70s. You know, they're still putting out that same hairstyle. You know, it's like when a comic becomes successful. They stay that comedian, you know. They that's them to the end now, you know. Like so the likes of, you know, big names of now, they'll be nodding their heads and going, "Oh, we will," you know. That'll be their thing till the end, I imagine. Whereas I don't want that. I don't want to be the bloke who just does the voice from the random. You know, next year it could be completely different again, you know. And people who hated me last year might end up going, "Oh, I like him now," and people who love me might go, "Why are you doing this?" Because I don't want to be stopped still. The whole thing I want to do is to constantly be blank canvas the whole time and just keep redrawing it and rewriting it and working it, you know.
Yeah. So basically, you like it to stay fresh for yourself. So almost you're part of the audience on stage. So you're getting the working yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I say this in my show. You know, I say in my show. You know, my mum. Really, honestly, my mother honestly instilled into me. She used to say, you know, if you can do it, people don't know what's coming next. You know, you've got them transfixed. And I say on stage, I thought to myself, that's a great idea, but what if I don't know what's coming next?
Yeah. It's that fear,
to,
isn't it?
to a certain degree, it is that. Of course, there are a few shots ahead I know I can get back to, but like last night, I was in Brighton last night, and generally a Brighton crowd are brilliant. But last night, for some reason, it was hard. It wasn't there and it wasn't me. It just didn't click quite right,
Uh-huh.
And I've got a series of ideas and things that I do when I'm on stage where I throw out little hooks, if you like. And what I can do is by that I can kind of gauge what the mass is going for and what the outer fringe is going for.
Okay.
And through that I can either gauge if the craziness is what the mass is going for and the fringe is more mainstream, and vice versa. But last night I was throwing everything out. I couldn't gauge it at all. So there's a fine line with going, do you entertain people because they pay the money, or do you actually say, no, this is what I do, and you continue to lead them?
Mm-hmm.
There's a kind of a conflict with myself going on, but then I had the voices talking at the same time, which obviously adds to the fire because there's a candidness to those.
Yeah.
So they can actually, if it's not going well, they can add to it and make it even worse. Because I'm turning around going, this is a rubbish audience,
Yeah.
and they go, what? Well, no, it's not.
Yeah. Well, it's like.
But last night I got to a point where, for example, just to let you know, my mind works. I was there and I was doing this whole routine that I know that it really depends on the performance and then buying it. And if they don't, it's just a silence at the end, which is rare. But last night I finished it and there was nothing. They're just staring at me. And inside now, I've got a bit of the panic, right? I'm thinking, no.
Yeah.
You have to rescue this. Because I have this sort of routine where I see if I can lick my own elbow, you see, and I go, the question is, can I lick my own elbow, right? And the music comes in. Of course, I try and lick my own elbow. Why not? And, I thought, I've got that. See, now I've got that. And I'm thinking to myself, but take this so awkward now. So awkward. I took it so awkward that even I was feeling awkward. And the audience were going, oh my God, I don't like being in this position.
Yeah.
And then me telling them that they felt awkward.
Yeah.
And then I felt awkward, and we all felt awkward. How we don't like that. And then, because I knew at that one point, I left it and held it maybe about 5 or 6 seconds, just held it, that with saying nothing and looking at them, but them looking at me, and then went, now the question is, this part of the show, can I lick my own elbow? And the music comes in, and I start trying to lick my own elbow. And it's the kind of the relief thing of them all going, oh my God, thank you.
Yeah.
And me going, I found something. But that's the danger of it all the time, the constant danger, even when it's not going like, because every comic wants to storm it, but there are certain ways of getting big laughs and storming, and there are other ways of not worrying about not getting the laughs, even though it's interesting. Yep. But that was a point last night where I was going, look, I really don't know what you want or what I want to perform. It was just one of those. Yep. And we've done the two Johns before that, which is John and my partner and I, not partner, but my comedy partner. Mm-hmm. And that is so bonkers and random. We're singing about, I've got a cloth stuck in my eye, she flew under the window, and all these different, just very random songs. It's just a completely random act, and it's subversing double acts and all that kind of thing. So, that's another thing where you're going to buy that or you're not going to buy that. And if they don't buy the warm-up act, then, I think, well, I'm going to have to work here. So it was just one of those. But it's about being prepared to take that, though. And that's the thing that I really like. And various things that I won't bore you with, but famously, I think I've said now about the Steve Martin book. I think once you can not worry about what people say and what have you, and if it's good or bad, you just get on with it. And I kind of thought to myself, because I've said this so many times now, to condense it is, I think once you get over yourself, right, it all becomes so much easier. Once you get over yourself and, oh, I don't like me, why are they writing that about me on the internet, right? Once you can go, who cares, and get on with it, right? Mm-hmm. That's when the magic starts.
Yeah. Well, basically, I heard you say that you were quite depressed before and you've come back to comedy, and now because of that experience you went through, you kind of almost don't care anymore. But obviously there's still that professional aspect where you do care, but it's in the not caring that you're caring. That's the
conflict. The conflict is that professionally you have to care because people have paid to come in, right? You can't just go, I don't care if I die or live here.
Yeah.
That's a nonsense. Uh-huh. That is a nonsense. But what you've got to do is not care whether people like it or don't like it. Now, there's the complete contradiction in that.
Yeah.
But it's another one of those things where there are nights where, for example, you go out and you be funny or you be funny. Do you see what I'm saying by that? Like, and it happens to me. Like you go out and you be funny, right? You manufacture funny, or you go out and you are funny. And that's sometimes whether people have paid money, haven't paid money. And, you know, if you read any sort of boxing autobiography, and I think stand-up and boxing, believe it or not, they do go hand in hand in some crazy way. In the fact that, you know, even boxers will say they have off nights. You know, they're punching someone and they're getting punched, and you have an off night. You know, I wasn't as entertaining as I could be. I wasn't on quite the same rhythm that I normally am. You know, and with comedy, you know. So when I think you say you don't care, of course I always care, but I don't care if you've got a beef with it. You know, if I'm going to split a room, I don't care. Does that make more sense?
Well, you're better.
My outset is I'm going to do my best. My outset is that I'm going to be professional and be funny. But the end game is the fact that, well, if I've upset you, didn't like it, that's not my problem. That's not anyone's problem. We just didn't get on, and let's shake hands and call it a day.
Well, you've obviously come to the realisation of kind of what works for you, and basically that other way of being prepared and doing everything kind of by numbers isn't going to give you success in the vast majority of nights. Where this crazy way will, but there's going to be those nights where it doesn't work.
No, but that's right. That's the thing that I think you need to get through. I think because once you take those moments, if you are prepared to go on stage and go, I am literally prepared and go, I'm going here tonight. Don't go for it. Don't go for it. But what will happen in that, if they do go for it, there'll be a moment of magic within that for even me as well as the audience, hopefully as the audience, where you'll go, I would never have got to that moment of euphoria comically if I hadn't just gone on and gone, oh, I don't care if I die. Because you can never take it to that extreme unless you're prepared to go out there and tank. Because it's those magic moments that keep it going. I mean, there are moments sometimes when I'll do something and the audience will applaud, but they will see in my face like a child. I've gone, oh my God, that was great, wasn't it? I mean, that really was good what we've just done there. And I see it as a wee thing, you know.
Yeah, well,
I see the fact that the audience are may not even being used in the audience, may using just my own mind, but it's the fact that the audience will allow me, and I do believe that humans give things off without even talking. You know, they give me that confidence of going, go there, man. You go there. So if you do the Establishment Club, they've started doing the Establishment Club again in the Ronnie Scott's in London, which is a guy called Mike O'Brien and Keith Allen. And they set it up, and I've done it twice now, and it's one of the freest places as a performance comic. You know, you can have it. It's so geared up to the fact that kind of that whole punk thing, because you know I walk around so much going, where's the punk now? There's no, you know, about having that moment of just going, you know, this is taking it to the extreme of being able to stand somewhere and say the word bagger for 20 minutes, you know, and because you can. And something like that is where you can do it in a comedy club situation. That's probably what I should have said to start with. You know, that the problem with doing that comedy club thing is that you wouldn't be able to do that anymore. There's too many things to appease like promoters where that establishment have set this kind of thing. Ronnie Scott's kind of in a review kind of situation, which has long been calling out for, you know, and you can go up there and there are people performing poetry and other kinds of crazy sort of radical sort of left-wing views and stuff, and, you know, and people taking you know, their view to the stage, and people in the audience giving you what they think, which is a great place. I don't even know I got to this point, but what I'm saying is it's the freedom within doing tours where you've got this complete freedom, and then there's a difference between, you know, appeasing and being professional.
Yeah, we're talking about basically, I agree with what you're saying, you know, the audience is like when you see you create something, they're in the moment as well, so that becomes a special moment. It can't be recreated at other ones, so everyone recognises that, and that becomes a little bit extra for people.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. It's about the audience and me, because the worst thing for performing a comic is, of course, when you walk out and you go, it's me and them. You don't want that. You want to walk out and go, it's us together. You know. Because and that's a lovely thing about when people. It's exactly what you just said. You know, when people are bought into what you're doing, you know, and if we didn't have bills to pay, and you know, and I do this whole thing of, you know, I'm on a bit of a zeitgeist at the moment, that money doesn't really exist, but if we didn't have bills to pay and, you know, food to buy for the family, I'd quite happily go on stage for nothing. You know, it'd be a lovely place to actually go out and not even charge them.
Yep, that's exactly.
It would be lovely, because I think it would be even more truthful. But there is a thing in comedy as well, though, and it goes right back to the old student days, where, you know, you've got to charge people at least 50 pence. Because actually, when you don't charge people to come in, you know, the whole thing is a very different thing, because they're not invested
They're not invested in it, yeah. It's like,
Yeah, and it's a funny thing though, even though
I do
the
free
actual
shows at the
is
festival.
time, isn't it? And time is the more important thing.
Yeah, I do like free shows at the festival, you know, and people there are just not committed to the thing, so they're not
There you go.
willing to laugh, you know. So there is a kind of
Yeah.
balance there. But I agree with you about money, basically. I think the whole system and living just to pay to live is bullshit, you know. It'd be great if we had a kind of more contribution society where people do what they're good at and others reciprocate, you know.
Well, I'm massively on that spin at the moment, and it's quite funny watching. But it all really happened with I was on. I mean, I won't go into it all now, but I'm just on this kind of tip anyway. And I was in a flea market in Greenwich, in South London, and I saw five old 10p's for £1. And I thought, hold on a second, that doesn't make sense, does it? And I got into this whole thing about when does the actual weight of the coin become, you know, more in its value of metal than it actually is, you know. So when's the 2p actually worth more in its weight than it actually is as a coin, you know, actually is its value. And then I started thinking, what is this value we put on ourselves? Anyway, I don't want to get into it now, but I've been talking about it on stage a lot, and people just go, oh, where are you going? Where are you going?
Yeah, well, I quite like that kind of stuff. Maybe we'll get together, meet up at Edinburgh sometime and have a chat about that.
Yeah, we'll do that. That'll be good. I'd like to see. We'll have a couple of pints and go over that, yeah.
Just talking about the danger of comedy, there's another, you know, like in the past we had Late and Live in Edinburgh was a lot more kind of anarchic, and that kind of spirit of craziness is kind of, it's been a little bit watered down because of, again, you know, people wanting a career and money and all that stuff. But there's something came out recently, Set List. Have you ever tried that? Because that's very challenging. I think you'd be, well, I don't know what you would do with that because...
Well, I'll tell you on all those questions. Firstly, I think Edinburgh Fringe shouldn't be called the Edinburgh Fringe anymore because it's not a fringe festival as far as comedy is concerned. I totally agree with you on that. Not when I started. The other thing about the anarchic sort of Saturday Night Late Live and what have you, is that has become a manufactured thing now. Like, it's a raucous place to go. And that kind of makes me go, no, that's not what it was about. And I think even Karen Corrin would be the first one, you know.
It's became a parody of itself, really, kind of thing.
Say again, sorry.
It's became a parody of itself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But having said that, when I do Late Night, it's absolutely as mental as I can make it. And I use the word mental, which probably I shouldn't, but as crazy and as off his head as I can. I mean, to the point where I want to fight werewolves and you know, it's just complete, because I'm not taking the piss out of it, but I'm kind of going, this is what it's about then, is it? I'm usually quite drunk as well.
Okay.
So, how you go out for like nothing and do it, you know, it's really funny. But, so there's that, and then the other thing you said about set list. Now, set list where you get obviously a set 5 questions, well, 5 ideas of comedy that you've got to pretend that is in your set. The first time I did it in Edinburgh, I wasn't too sold on it, and I did it, and I thought, well, kind of this is what I do anyway, and it was a bit, for me, it was like being shackled a little bit, you know. I felt sort of a bit constrained, and that's what a lot of comics say. And then the second time I was at the Galway Festival last year, and I was with the guy who was running the place, Kevin, and he kept saying, go and do set list and all that, and I went, no, I don't want to do set list, and we watched it a few nights, and I was thinking, I want to do set list, because I kind of had an idea. And then on the last night, I said, go and do set list. So I did it on my back with my shoes. I didn't put one pair of Converse on, and I did the whole set list, you know, with my shoes doing it.
Yeah, I've seen,
and I absolutely adored it. And by every question, you know, every sort of idea, premise that came out was just ideal for what I was doing. So there I was on my back for 10 minutes doing the whole of set list. And they've also, if you know, there's the bucket, isn't there? When you get a little bit stuck, you can go in the bucket and take out a little thing to help you along. So there was one bit where I was a bit precarious and just trying to put my right shoe in the bucket. So it was a bit slapsticky as well, but it was absolutely lovely, and I so enjoyed it. And I thought, if I do set this again, I'll have to do it on my back every time. Paul Provenza was just going to me going, and it was a lovely moment, because as I said earlier, you know, I've walked round so long going, where is the punk? You know, where's the punk? You know, all these tight t-shirted comedians talking about Lidl, you know, and I'm going, where's the punks? You know, where are they? You know, you've got Paul Foot and what have you, and all these different people who are doing it, but can't getting, you know, only in the cool crowd, and the mainstream doesn't see it. But it was lovely. At the end, when Paul was saying to me, He goes, "You're a punk, man." He goes, "You're a punk, man. You are a punk." And I was going, "At last, I've made it."
Yeah.
I've made it. It was lovely. And it was the biggest compliment of my entire career that someone actually turned around and went, "You're a punk." And I thought, I don't want to say that myself, but I was thinking, please someone say that. Someone was just going out there and taking the mainstream and just going, shaking it and going, "Look, you're all the same. Look at us."
Yep. I mean, definitely watching your act, that punk ethos is there, the kind of individuality that punk started out with, and basically...
But it's funny how it took me a long time to realise it, though, and funny enough, I used to have a kind of a joke about it. It wasn't a joke, it was a build into something. Like, you'd walk along South End Seafront and you'd see the punks with their mohawks and, their chains and their, piercings. Mm-hmm. And you get the normal society trudging past going, "God, look at them, look at the state one." And then, of course, the punks are looking at the mainstream going, "Look at all you, all just the same, exactly the same. Little boxes,
Yeah.
And it takes you for a while to actually, you're talking about it on stage and then looking at yourself going, hold on a second, you're just like those people you're talking about, the punks you're talking about. You're just another one, aren't you? You're just another one on a conveyor belt or something."
Yeah, because when you first come into comedy, when you first come into comedy, you don't really know what you're doing, so you're just kind of emulating others. And you have to go through that process of finding...
What, mate, that's another thing I call people. I call them emulators. Someone says, "What do you think of somebody?" And I just go, "Well, they're just an emulator, aren't they?" Mm-hmm. I don't mean that wickedly. It's funny when you get to a certain point, you're just blunt to it. You just go, "Yes or no." It's a bit like Godfather. No. It's like Michael. No. Don't ask me. Yes or no. They're emulators. They just, find something else. I can understand it because you're always going to play safe when you've got to please, the comedy store or something because you want your next gig in there.
Exactly, yeah.
But it comes to a point that actually maybe that isn't so true. It's if you want to play jongleurs or highlights for the rest of your life, then obviously you want to stick to that kind of thing. But if you want to do something else, and there's no detriment to that, if that's what you do, you do. But I didn't want that. I wanted to express more, and it was really Izard was the final thing for me in 2008 at the Comedy Store in London. And he said, he came in the dressing room and he went, "Oh, stuff." And I went, "Yeah." And I just said to him, I was kind of looking at him, and he was sort of facing out the dressing room towards the stage kind of thing. And I said, "I want to do what you, Spike Milligan, and as I said earlier, and what you've done for Eddie." And he went, "Oh, I can't do what you do." He points to the stage, "I can't do what no one can do what you do. And that's why you need to take it out. And you need to go on tour. And you burn the bridges to the comedy clubs, you go on tour, you build it, they will come and you will be godlike." And that's his words, right? Godlike. And I was like, absolutely stunned. And he's so belief that, you will become godlike. And I was going, just stand up,
Yeah.
But where he sets it, and with no arrogance, though. Don't take this the wrong way. He wasn't going, "I'm a god." He was pointing. His point is, where do you set the benchmark? He's just going, "You'll be godlike. You'll put it up there." Mm-hmm. And I don't think I could ever put myself saying that he would be godlike, but I kind of took the ball. That was kind of what I said. I said, "Right, if he's saying this to me now, and he has full respect for what I do, then really I'm a fool, aren't I?" Because then, I was getting a lot of this sort of peer respect, and I thought, well, I can't just hide in the comedy clubs because I was actually lying to myself,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't playing many anyway. But the point was, it was corporates and the odd comedy club and doing the usual thing, getting up in the morning thinking, what should I do? I'll do my VAT return, I'll do my tax, I'll get that sorted out into the accountant, that kind of mundane life,
Yeah.
And then I kind of went, well, hold on a second. This isn't what you should be doing, and that realisation that I was doing what I did, and then that's the whole opening of it. And and I went on tour. It was since 2008, I just went, right, this is it then. This is dare I say it, shit or bust, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what Eddie meant when he said godlike is, finding your unique voice, because essentially we're all gods, it's becoming that and kind of embodying that uniqueness of yourself. That's true. That's a good way of looking at it. And he's no fool, of course. Love him or hate him again. He's another one. He's what they call it Marmite now. He's another one. But the Marmite comics, the ones that will always they'll be the ones that are remembered. If you want some sort of legacy, then really they're the people
you know, who I would always look at, like people like Freddie Face Davis. You know, I loved him as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but is he a real mainstream one that everyone remembers? No, he's not. He was a bloke with the bum that went all the time, but I loved it. You know, so even at that age, I was looking at people and just going, and like the Maxwell and all that kind of thing. You know, who did one of my favourite jokes is that Maxwell gag when he went, he'd do his silly walk and then get right to the microphone and just go and say, "Did you know there's going to be thousands of people in Bristol tonight? How do you know? Because they bloody live there." Beautiful. But you remember he'd done all that silly walk before it and got round to the mic. I just love it the way he would go, "Because they bloody live there." Yeah. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's all
stupid.
Yeah. Sometimes you write stuff down on paper and it's just ridiculous, but it's all in the performance.
Oh, no, it's right, but it's all in the performance, you know. It's a silly question asking him, you know, he's doing the old setup, you know, and punchline to himself, but thousands of people live in Bristol. Why? Because they bloody live there.
Yeah.
So what?
I wanted to ask you, I heard you say that someday when you were 18 or something, you had a drink spiked with acid and it kind of affected your brain.
Oh, no. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, well done. Have I mentioned that somewhere?
Yeah, it's on a interview.
Yeah, what happened was, I can't say that did anything, but I personally think, since that time, you know, I found myself with a kind of a strange thing going on in my head. But
so do you think there's a difference between you before that and after it, and have you used any of those drugs since then?
Yeah, I do think I definitely think it brought back. And you know, smoking drugs and stuff like that. When you're young and you're going, oh yeah, no, everybody does it. You go, oh, what about drinks? You know, they'll try and ban drugs. Mm-hmm. You know, but what about drinks? Thousands of people die drinking it every year, but they don't mention it because they tax it. Like, that's what everyone says. Whether that's true or not, that's what people say, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know about that. But what I do know is that I think smoking copious amounts of marijuana does cause problems to people's minds. I don't care what anyone says. It does, definitely. I know so many people who smoke weed for so many years, and they're either depressed or they've got now problems where they are literally hearing voices in their head and that kind of thing. Yeah. And I was smoking as a kid, you know, having a laugh and smoking a bit of weed and what have you. And there was a little bit of paper being passed around and everyone was giggling. And I thought, oh, this is good. And I was really laughing. Uh-huh. And then eventually they gave me the bit of paper to tell me that, yeah, they striped me up with a couple of tabs of acid on like a Wednesday, and everyone left me about 10:30, you know, because they had work in the morning. Uh-huh. So it was really, you know, I say that with my friends, really when you look at it, it's tantamount to bullying, that really, isn't it? But I think, you know, they were friends actually, believe it or not. I just think they knew that I was always a game joker. Uh-huh. And I would honestly say that as one of the horrible, most terrifying nights of my life. I just remember just being flipping out, man. It's funny now, but
well, basically, a similar thing happened to me. I went to a rave once, and you know, I was there, and somebody gave me a bit of paper. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything about acid. Next thing you know, looking at myself in the mirror, go, Jesus Christ, my face is melting, you know. And,
yeah.
And it was a bit of a shock if you're not kind of prepared for it.
No, and believe me, you know, even at that time, I you know, my mind is obviously, as a kid or whatever, you know, I've got a creative mind, you know, a very sort of like, you know, 2 + 2 makes 27. You know, my mind would be anyway. So the last thing I needed was that, and then, yeah, I mean, it was horrible. And I think I was about 18 when it happened. But I honestly, like I say, yeah, I think that really affected me after that. I really do think that affected me.
And did you take it? Did you take anything like that for recreation again? Anything like any of those?
No, I didn't. I used to do a bit of speed and what have you, and you know, carrying on with the rave scenes. You know, I didn't do ecstasy. I think it didn't really work for me. But yeah, I probably kept nailing the nail in harder, psychotically. But I definitely think, yeah, there was definitely a change in my whole personality after that. You know, I think I kind of lost my innocence a little bit. You know, that child went a little bit. I think it kind of a bit of a weird. If I'm honest, I'm babbling away here. It's hard to explain.
Do you think that's kind of, you know, because in the interview I heard, you kind of alluded to the fact that it's made you able to do those voices more, kind of that that split that.
Well, no, well, yeah. Well, the thing is, I may have said that. I don't know. I don't know what I said then, but the voices are easy to do because of imaginary friends. You know, I had imaginary friends as a kid, and I had an imaginary friend, which, if I'm completely honest, has never left me. So, I mean, I wouldn't say he's an imaginary friend now, but he's not an imaginary friend now. I just said that. But, you know, this kind of multi-personality thing is probably what I was going on about from that trip. You know, it would unhinge on a kind of this multi-personality thing. I don't have a multi-personality disorder, but I, like everybody else, you know, I was having moments of extreme anger and down, and then being, "Hey, everything's brilliant," you know, which I think the trendy thing is called bipolar, but I'm not going to label it. It's just who I was at the time. And I think that's with that, and with the fact that I had an imaginary friend, it enables me to have these multi-conversations with multi-personalities and disguise myself in multi-different ways. Yeah.
So basically,
it's quite kind of weird, really, isn't it? But it's no great talent. I just think it's a fluke of whatever it is, you know.
So it just kind of came about basically because the voices appeared one night on stage when you were doing something, yeah?
Well, the thing is, I did do the voices as a gag, but the thing is, I had some therapy, and the guy said to me in the therapy, obviously, he was a nice bloke, actually. He obviously done a bit of research and gone on YouTube, and he said, you know, I watched your stuff, and I said, oh, yeah, and he said, do you realise what your actors? And I went, not really. He said, well, you know, after speaking to you for a few weeks, it seems to me, he said, with depression, he said, we've spoken about, you have the protagonist, you have the child and the adult, right? So you have the protagonist in your mind causing the problem, and then you've got the adult trying to sort it out, but the child's not really knowing what to do about it. And it's this vicious circle. There's other versions of it, but it's called a drama triangle.
Okay.
And he said to me, you know, if you really think about it, you know, what you're doing on stage, you have these two voices, and then you at the front. He said, and, you know, one's a protagonist and one's, well, they're both protagonists, really, but he said, but the thing is, you know, the point is, you know, you've created a drama triangle. That's what you've done if you want to go deep.
Yeah, I was going to ask if those voices have particular characteristics, and do you give them names or anything? Or is it just the deep voice and the kind of light voice and they play off each other and you just do it instinctively? Is there any kind of thought behind those voices in particular?
I think there was, in the early days, there was a bit of thought behind them. Because they actually used to set proper gags up for me. But as I said, what was happening is it was becoming too much of a format. And I have found this thing that was suddenly working. And what I was doing was I was the old me working out, going, well, if they do that, then I'll do the counting routine and then this and that, you know. And it was becoming formatic again. It was just format again.
Kind of stifling you.
And yeah, and it's not so stifling. You're just suddenly going, hold on a second, you're being caught in this world again.
Oh, right.
Of they say that, they say this, and I was thinking the original thing of the voices was, but it was my inner voice, my inner monologues, whatever you want to call them, telling me really what was going on, and I was finding what was happening. They were becoming something, you know, they were becoming a setup, and I suddenly started thinking, no, this is all wrong. This is all wrong. So I kind of stripped it all back again, and then didn't really. And now I don't think about those two voices in my head. I just let them happen now because you know that was the danger. I think I have two setups for them now, and one of them is about Tintin, and that's it. You know, he looks like Tintin. You must find out if he is Tintin, and it lets me turn around and do a few jokes about it. And that's the only real setup they have now. So the rest of it is really game on, and I have this other alter ego now, who's playing out front, who sort of comes and rescues me a lot. You know, he's quite camp. And then those two now, I don't know where it's going at the moment, but it seems to be that those two are getting kind of like a little bit jealous about who this guy is, you know.
That's quite interesting.
But I've got to be careful because I want it to become contrived at the same time. It's a fine line to going, actually, you know, you're giving it up too much here. It's always a little fine line of, so I'm just sort of chipping away at the moment to see where it will take it. Because I obviously don't want it to be, because it's funny, you know, either.
Yeah, that just kind of empty laugh. It has to be a genuine gut laugh.
Yeah, I want it to be funny because you know, there is a realisation of something that's just happened, and that's what I was saying to you about when you go up there and it's more jazz. Is because those things happen much better. They just do. They just happen. And you know, of course, I go up with stuff. I'm not stupid. I've got stuff that is pre-planned and written, and you know, but where I put it and how I put it is is another thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you're absolutely right, and that's what was happening with the voices. To be honest with you, that's why I just kind of let them riff. They do riff. I just have to let them riff. Otherwise,
you're just falling back into that safety thing again, the safety mechanism of getting a laugh. So you're using them as part of that. But you realise.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they are without a doubt, as a gimmick or as a mechanic or whatever you want to call it. The finding of those, I know that I spoke to so many comics who have said, God, I can't believe you found that. Because what it does and has done is now created much more for me as a comic. But more than that, it is a massive safety net. It is an incredible safety net. Mm-hmm. From a heckler to me thinking that's not working, I can always get out of it by talking to the voices and discussing what's going on and give myself that little yard of space to think about what I can come up with next, or even, design something with those two, then to turn around and then about 2 minutes later, then drop the punchline. People go, see what he's done there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and you're right, and it is a brilliant device, and safety net is without a doubt the truth of it. But what it has done, as I said, that safety net has allowed me to then create and have the balls to go as far as I want to go.
Yeah, because even the thing about when you do the voices as well, you turn your back on the audience, which sometimes can be up for like 2 minutes probably. It's quite a long time.
Yeah, well, it's rude as well, isn't it? That was the other thing. People. It was another one of those kind of in the dressing room things where people were saying, you can't turn your back on the audience. It's rude. And they said, oh, Chief just does it for 5 seconds and it's amazing. And I was like, I was kind of going, that's not amazing, is it? It's not rude. It's nothing, is it? It's just something, isn't it? And that was the mood I was at. No disrespectful, but that was where I was at the time. I think, what are you on about? Actually, talking about that, there's just something I've just observed, actually. That was another thing that happened to me. I just suddenly thought, what are these rules? What are these rules that everyone talks about, that you can't turn your back? That was what was happening at the same time. I was kind of feeling a bit down and bitter about it. What are these rules that everyone...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You can't be racist, you can't be homophobic, you can't be this, you can't do that on stage. I suddenly started thinking, look, anyone wants to be that. Why can't they be that, right? The audience will hang them. If you want to go and do some lame racist rubbish, the audience will hopefully sit there and go, this is horrible, we don't like you, get off. I mean, that's what it is. But no one has the right to tell anyone there's a rule that you can't do that. I remember there was something with the government at one point a few years back when they were turning around going, oh, you comics can't do jokes about religion on stage anymore. Was that a rule or a law that came out? And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What do you want about?
Well, basically,
what do you want about? I don't agree with religion. It's not something I'm into. Why can't I take the mickey out of it? What are you on about?
Yeah,
who am I offending? Who is anyone offending? If you're not offending as a comic, really, right? If you're not cracking eggs to make omelets and all that, or not up there to make friends. The point is, really, if you truly want the crowd that you want to come and see you, then you go up and you do it. And if it dies and it's wrong, then it's wrong and it dies. The only rules in comedy are timing. And there's no doubt about that. There is nothing more than timing. It's the only rule. Mm-hmm. And timing doesn't change. It is 1, 2, 3, boom. It's timing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only rule.
Oh, you still there?
I went off on one there, Bill, didn't I? I went off on one.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I totally agree with you. Basically, that's the whole point of comedy, is to be able to express things that we can't say in normal social circumstances, but to be able to get that laugh out of it.
Otherwise, you're back at the end of the pier again with my wife,
Yeah. So we've got to allow that. I think Rowan Atkinson was quite public about, when that thing happened about religion, to kind of say, look, we have to keep comedy free speech, and if people say offensive things, then they'll learn from it, hopefully, and come back better, But we have to have that element of being able to do that. Otherwise, what's the point?
But the point is, the more worrying thing to me is, though, Bill, is that when you've got, this was the more worrying thing to me, when you have a group of people, right, who are running the world, right, that we live in and inhabit, telling me that there is now a law, right, regardless of the freedom of speech, there is a law that you can't do jokes about religion, right, and you have people believing, right, in my opinion, about a snake in a tree.
Yeah.
And all these stories, right? And that is what they're saying you can't take the mickey out of anymore in 2012.
Yep.
And I'm going, if you told these stories in a pub, or if I went up to the government and said, oh, here's a story about a snake talking, right? And then this bloke said, you can't have that apple, right? And then he made 2 people. You'd be going, look, mate, can you go? Because we got business to do.
Yeah.
This is, I can't hear these silly stories. And then you're going to me that there's a rule. What?
Yeah.
And then there's people out there going, oh, now you've offended them. You've offended the Christians and Muslims and everyone. What? So, well, they've offended us, the atheists, then. So, what's that old joke about being an atheist? The only problem with being an atheist is you don't get many holidays, right? But it's like, what are you on about? What are you on about? These are flipping Bronze Age stories, and you're running the world.
Yeah, but they don't want people discussing religion because it's a handy control tool, so it's all to do with that. Really.
It's a control tool. But it's a control tool that they know they haven't got much time left with as well, So that's why now, as we were talking earlier, and I'm doing stuff about money, and oil and all these things, these are the new threats. You're going to lose all your money, you are. No, please don't take my money.
I was going to ask you...
Please don't take everything away from me.
Yeah, that's the fear that everyone's held in, basically, yeah? That lack of money and keeps us on the treadmill, which is... What's stopping a huge explosion of human creativity could come out of this, if we done away with money, we'd all be free to explore our own talents,
Well, I've said before, it would be brilliant, they talk about these treble dips or whatever, I don't know what they are. Some nonsense, right? I just know what the rich people can buy stuff cheaper because people can't go, please buy it off me because I can't afford it, and rich people go, brilliant, more for me. I'd be brilliant if the whole world lost everything. Your cars, right, and all we were left with was our dwellings, and there was no mortgage on them anymore because the bank couldn't get any money. There wasn't no such, they can't be that amount of money. And then everyone just goes, it's brilliant. Because we'd all go, oh God, I've lost my car. Oh yeah, great. Oh yeah, great. I've got no stress about paying that car payment or getting petrol for it anymore.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, brilliant. We can all just relax now. Oh God, who are you? Oh, you're my wife for 15 years. I know who you are now because I've been stuck in a bubble of worrying about can I pay that tax bill.
Yep, it's a total crime against humanity, in my opinion.
It's nonsense.
Yeah,
but we're all guilty of it. But unfortunately, we're not the creator of it. It's really a weird one.
Well, we are.
Anyway, this is me. This should be me and you having a drink in Edinburgh, really.
I know, but some people are interested in it, Anyway.
Oh, I know they are. I know. I love all that. I love all that because but equally, I won't let my blood boil over it because I know. For want of a better example, but over 1 million people marched in London saying we want this war stopped, and they just went, they forget about it soon, and that's what people do. That's what humans do. They just go, well, you want it stopped, right? Oh, look, oil prices, good goodness, and then before you know it, you don't even. What about the war 2 years ago? Oh no, we're not into that now. We're worried about the economy.
Yeah, it's just that people are basically manipulated by the media what to think, and it's all controlled.
Well, I don't read the papers and I don't listen to the news, and I just listen.
I'm the same as you, mate. Yeah, because I was going to ask you, in the interview I've seen before, you said that after 9/11 you got depressed for a few years, and that's what made you stop comedy. Is that right? At that time?
Well, that kind of was the catalyst for me going. That was at that point. I really wish I knew that I was having a bit of a breakdown, really. But it was all self-indulgent breakdown. It was what we're just talking about. It was about the fact that I was losing all this. I was losing. The wealth of show off. Of me going, oh, I have this car and I can't. No, I don't have it anymore. I've still got tax bills to pay. Right. And. I've got, that's got to go and all that. And me going, oh my God, I'm losing everything. Everyone expected me, my mum, and my wife, and you suddenly believe that that's what it was. You've ruined it. They wanted you to be a star. That's the only reason they're around you. That's madness that you enter. And it escalates, and before you know it, you're on a full avalanche of emotion, and you're amongst it and are creating it. And it's a really weird thing. Mm-hmm. And then I think when I hit the Twin Towers, I was on my honeymoon. And I kind of suddenly went. It sent me on one, and I was reading about all this bollocks on
I've done the same
on the internet, and I suddenly realised that really what was happening was I was realising that I was having thoughts that were scarier than dying. Right, when you have that thing, I'm going to die one day. Oh my God, there'll be nothing. It was more scary than that. These things I was opening up about humanity and all that in my own mind, which I locked away. I was opening up all this crazy stuff, and then they hit these towers, and I'll be honest with you, I completely masticed every window in the house. I got mastic and I filled everything up. Yeah. I completely and utterly lost it.
That sounds a bit crazy, yeah.
It's hilarious, isn't it? I completely, and my wife, bless her, she stayed around, and she just, because she was in her own crazy bubble. But yeah, I completely thought, this is it. We're all going to perish here. I completely lost it. And when I look back at it, you know, that is not who I am, and I'm not easily persuaded in any way by that kind of, you know, or believe in that kind of thing. And I found myself just going, you know, when I look back on it now, it's hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious. So that was a conscious effort when I said to myself, right, I'm not reading papers anymore. I had a wake-up call to that. I just thought this, because when I came through it, I thought, this is what it is. It's just propaganda. It's nonsense.
That's it. You get to the realisation that it's all bullshit, so why would you waste your time listening to their bullshit?
Exactly. I said, someone reminded me, I did a podcast in Edinburgh last year. Someone rang me up, my friend Chris, and said, I was listening to that podcast, hilarious. He said, well, you can go on about newspapers. Bad news ever, bad news ever, pretty girl, bad news ever, pretty girl, bad news ever, sport.
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought, that's what it was. I used to look at the paper just go, this is making me feel depressed, but I turned to the courage page and buy that computer.
Yeah.
What was happening? I was thinking, is this what it's all about? And then I just steered away from it, all of it, and especially ITN news as well. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Although I keep away from ITV if I can, or as I call it, insipid television.
Yeah. Well, Bill Hicks talked about it's like watching TV's like getting a big bit of black paint and painting your third eye over, you know, basically.
Yeah.
I find it quite interesting into all that stuff, because your act is like nothing at all like it, but maybe it's in the anarchy of the act is kind of a statement in itself.
The bit about it at the moment, I have gone on this. Someone tweeted the other day saying, "What are you going a bit zeitgeist, Terry?" But I kind of that's what I'm saying about not stopping still, about being, you know, 1 minute I'm a silly comic, the next minute I want to go off on some stuff, you know, politically. But it will never be like boring politics. It will only be from my mind. It's like, as I said, the whole thing of me being on stage is me unloading my mind to the audience, and that's what it is. It's just me going off on it. And it's not right or wrong. You know, this is the point about what I say. I'm not trying to stand there and people go, he's right, you know. It's not about that. I'm sure there are a lot of people going, he's not read about this, he doesn't know what he's on about. That's not my worry. My thing is the comedy, and what I'm doing is going, this is how I see it, you know. And that's what I'm putting out. It's not whether I'm right or wrong. I don't know about economics. I just know what I know about how I see it. And that's how I see it as a layman and as a bare minimum, you know. There will be more educated, intelligent people sitting there going, well, the truth behind it all is this, you know. And that's what I'm there to be a comic, not a politician or, you know, some sort of, it's not a forum.
Well, ultimately, it's impossible to know the truth, you know, because the universe is so vast and you're so small and insignificant in one aspect, you know. So you can only be truthful in that moment and give your soul at that time, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And on that note, I've just realised I've got to get going, mate. My wife's been calling me about 3 times.
Okay, I was actually going to briefly mention
it's 20 past 1 already. It's bloody nice to talk to you, though, Bill. Thanks, mate.
No worries. I was going to ask you briefly, just you mentioned your wife a few times. You're married to page 3 girl, D.
She was a page 3 girl. Yeah, long. That was a long time.
Was she a page 3 girl when you met her, or was she finished that?
She was a page 3 girl when I met her. Still, she was at the end of it, and she was was the one I really liked her. I knew of her. I wasn't really a big page 3 man, but I knew of this her, and I quite liked her because I'd seen her on a few things as well. And I'm not a kind of guy, but I just something about her I really liked. So and then when I met her, I kind of like thinking, oh God, you know. And of course you put the whole cliche in your head, don't you? And she was like, hi, you know. And I thought, oh, you're all right, aren't you? Little did I know. So she was crackers.
What you were letting yourself in for? But
to be fair, she let herself in for something. And to be honest with you, if I'd ended up with an every happy 9 to 5 lady would have left me within, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks. They would just go, I can't be doing you. So she kind of gets it. I think it's a sort of side of her that kind of likes the pain. She likes the pain, you know what I mean?
Well, it's obviously working out for you, so I'm pleased about that. And I'll let you go and meet her and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks very much for spending some time with me.
Oh, mate, it's lovely talking to you. Thank you so much.
And good luck with the rest of your tour. It's carrying on tonight. Yeah, where are you tonight?
I'm off tonight at Mouldings in Farnborough tonight.
And then you've got a break until Southend. Oh, Southend, that's your hometown, yeah? On the 24th of March?
Southend on the 24th of March, yeah. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be good fun, yeah. And it's funny, we're in Manchester, it's selling so quickly up there, so they've had to move me to a bigger room. It's lovely, you know.
That's cool.
So it's nice. It's nice. It's building, man. It's building.
Yeah. very briefly, you played. You got re-signed to be a goalkeeper for Southend after your performance in the Legends match. Yeah. Did you ever get to play?
Yeah,
did you ever get to play a game for the first team?
No. Steve Tilson said to me, the manager at the time, he said, look, because we were flying high, he said, look, I'm going to give you 10 minutes at the end of the season if there's nothing to play for. And I was like, brilliant.
Uh-huh.
And then we went into the Johnson's Paint Trophy, which actually we're in the final of this year, and we lost. And then that was it. The whole league form fell apart, and we ended up in the playoffs. And I never got my chance. Well, I sat on the bench against Swansea, and it was Freddie Eastwood's debut. He was like a star striker for us, and he went on and scored in 7 seconds and got a hat trick and completely upstaged my day.
All right. Okay, well, it's a good experience, I'm sure. But I've seen some of your saves on YouTube from that match. That must have been good playing at Newcastle Stadium, yeah.
Oh, and amazing!
Yeah, you had a good game.
Full out, it's incredible.
It was one of those games everything
one of the most amazing things. But of course, I was still in the boarding out window stage. I was still in the dressing gown stage. I think I might have been in dressing gown 2 stage, meaning I was in my dressing gown all day long, every day.
All right.
And I think in 2004, so I wasn't doing stand up. I was just walking around, just going, "What am I going to do in my life? What am I going to do? I'm not doing it that way." Anyway, listen, I've got to go, Bill. I hate to do that.
No worries, mate. Thanks very much for your time again, and have a nice day. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bless you. Thanks, mate. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.